Looking for looking for a job and looking for a spouse, same difference. For many years, I thought I was so clever because I thought I was the only person in the whole wide world who saw this incredible parallelism of looking for a job and looking for a spouse. And I have since seen that there are quite a few people who have caught on to this. I was not the first, maybe. I was only the first for me. But I don't know that anybody has taken it to such a detailed metaphorical explanation as I'm going to do for you today. And then, if we have time, I'm going to seamlessly weave it into a very different, perhaps maybe related topic of tribes, but it's something good for you to know. All right. So one of the similarities between looking for a job and looking for a spouse is that in both cases, you are looking for a long-term relationship. Nobody wants a one-night stand. Well, a few people do, but most people do not want a one-night stand. They want a long-term relationship, and nobody really wants a one-day job. They want a job where they can count on a paycheck to come in on a regular basis, and they can budget, and they can feel safe and secure. So that's one similarity. Not only do you want this relationship, and keep in mind that is the key word, both a job and a marriage are a relationship. They are a relationship in every sense of the word. And you want these relationships to be mutually beneficial. You don't want a marriage or a job where one party is the giver and the other party is the taker. Everybody needs to benefit from this mutuality. Everybody needs to benefit from this collaboration, from this sharing. So at any rate, keep that in mind. If you are in a one-way relationship, it's time to get counseling or move on or something, because that's not the way it's supposed to work. You can find a spouse in the very same places where you find a job. You can find both in the newspaper and the want ads. By the way, there's lots of good want ads right now in the Chronicle. Also in the personal ads. Agencies can sometimes supply both. The internet, more and more people are finding partners all the time through the internet. Friends, this whole networking piece, lots of times people find folks or jobs because they get introduced to them through friends. And social events. And there may be other similarities, but those were the 5 that sprang out at me. And yes, first impressions do count. In both. Sometimes our first impressions are incorrect, but it causes such an enormous imprint on our minds that it's hard to overcome a very poor first impression. All right, the first date, the first interview, exactly the same. In both of those situations, each party is asking questions of the other because you're trying to get to know each other. You're trying to get to know, is this a person that has the characteristics that I'm looking for? Is this a person that I want to be with? I want to spend time with? Is this a person I want to live with or work with? Is this a person that will help me grow as a person? So it's not just one person asking questions and the other person answering questions. Both parties need to be asking questions and answering questions. And you are trying to get an idea as to whether you want to be with this person, or do you want to align yourself with this company? And so you're going to be asking lots of questions about the company, about the job, about coworkers, about management style, about lots of things to make sure that this is really a job that you're looking for. So keep that in mind, that you're interviewing each other. And sometimes with the questions that are asked, you're learning about each other from the kinds of questions they ask. And sometimes it is not a good thing. For example, let's say that somebody jumps right into this difficult topic of money. How much money do you make? If you were on a first date with somebody and they asked you how much money you make, how would you feel about that person? Would you ever ask them out again? It's really too early in the relationship for you to be asking such a personal and invasive question. Now, is it something that you need to know? I think so. If it reaches the point where you're to contemplate marriage, you need to know how much money this person makes. You need to know if you're going to be able to live together, to have the life together that you want. So you both need to share financial information. But in the first date, really? Zip it. And the same thing in the first interview. It's too early. You should never ask about salary in the first interview. They might bring it up. And in fact, we see that happening more often these days, where the company, the interviewer, brings up salary in the screening interview because they don't want to waste everybody's time. In the olden days, you didn't talk about money until the offer was made. And that's kind of what this is going after. But you, the job seeker, should never bring it up first. Never ask about money, never ask about benefits, never ask about any of that stuff in the first interview. Be prepared to respond to it if they ask you, but you should never be the one to bring it up. And in fact, if you are the one that brings it up, the only people that are, I've been told, the only people that are really allowed to be greedy in that way is salespeople. They want salespeople who are money motivated. But for the rest of us, no. Ask questions about the company. Make sure it's the right company. And then it could be that you'd be willing to even accept a little bit less money if it's the kind of company that you've been looking for a long time. And sometimes with the way that the conversation is going, red flags come up. So in this particular conversation, something was revealed about a past that created a red flag. So in the 51st dates one, my God, she's been married 3 times. There's a red flag here. I like her. She seems nice, but do I want to be number 4? So there's a big red flag that she has revealed in this first conversation. And also in a screening conversation, sometimes things happen as well. So the interviewer is saying, wow, 3 jobs in 5 years. There's a red flag there. We really want somebody, if we're going to invest in training them, we want somebody that's going to stick. And so this person might have issues with commitment, might have issues with dependability, with longevity. Please turn. Yes. So if the first interview is successful, you get more interviews. If the first date is successful, you get more dates. And each time you are learning more about this person. You're seeing them in different environments. You're bringing more people in to the mix and getting other first impressions. So you're finding out more and more and more about whether this person will be a good fit for the job or whether this person will be a good fit as a spouse. You're meeting the family. So eventually it looks as though it's really going to go somewhere. And so you meet the family, or you finally meet your team and you decide, do I want to be part of this craziness? Are these people that feel as though I share this culture? Am I going to be comfortable here? Are these people that go out and party and do heavy drinking every Friday? Yes, and that's exactly what I'm looking for. I'll fit in great. So you're meeting the coworkers and you're learning a little bit more about the culture and the style of this company, and you're making sure that it fits your values as well. So, and do you want to be part of that family? Sometimes you love the person, you hate the in-laws. If you don't like the culture, but it seems as though it's paying really well, is that enough incentive to take the job anyway? So you're making all of these assessments as you go. The more information you have, the clearer your decision will become. And finally, you get to the offer of commitment. Commitment. You have committed yourself to these relationships. You've committed yourself to this marriage. You're going to work hard to make it work. You've committed yourself to this job. You're going to do your very, very best to be a good employee. And once you start into these relationships, the emotional attachment begins to establish itself. And it could be that your primary emotional attachment is, as it perhaps should be, always be, to your spouse, and the love that you had for that person initially just grows and grows and grows. Sometimes when you get kids, that changes a little bit. The balance is a little bit different. It could be that what holds you into this family is other family members that you care about or worry about. It could be that what holds you into this relationship is the financial security, and it's not the emotional attachment to the people as much as it is to the security of having this other income. And also in your work, sometimes people say, I love my job. I love my job. I hate my company, but I love my job. It's exactly what I was trained to do, or I'm making a difference, or I'm helping people, or it's so fulfilling and rewarding to me personally. Some people, the strongest emotional attachment in the workplace is to their boss. I've seen people turn down more lucrative jobs because they didn't want to leave their boss. This is the best boss I've ever had. He stuck with us during the recession. He didn't lay anybody off. He didn't take a salary himself. He paid us out of his own pocket. So I'm not going to leave that person. I'm going to stay with that person because he was such a good boss to me. Sometimes your best friends are your coworkers, and you'll stick with a job. You no longer have an emotional attachment with the job, but you do to your coworkers. And sometimes you stay with a job you hate, with working with people you no longer like, because of the financial security, because it pays well, because you have a family to support, but you don't really care. The emotional attachment is not there. It's just for the money. Okay, so the relationship is over. Let's talk first about a marriage relationship. Let's say that you had a fabulous marriage. It was great. It was perfect. It was the best possible marriage you could ever have wanted. And all of a sudden, your spouse dies, passes on. That relationship was so great, it becomes the standard by which you judge all your future relationships. You may still go and date, but you're always comparing them, that date, to that perfect person that you had a relationship with. Is this person as loving? Is the person as funny? Does this person seem to value me as much? In each case, it's going to be comparing it to that gold standard. The same thing happens with a job. Some of us have been fortunate enough to have a fabulous job, the perfect job, the job that you thought you would stay with until you retired. You'd work past retirement because this job was so great. And all of a sudden, it hit hard times and the company closed down. Again, it becomes the standard. You judge all your future jobs. Does your next job pay as well? Does your next job give you as much satisfaction? Does your next job, are you valued? Do you have an opportunity for growth? That job that closed down was so good. It paid so well and it was so wonderful, and now it's gone. So you have a standard. Now you know What do you value in a job? What do you value? What characteristics do you value in a person? And your next relationship in either category, you're going to learn from that. All right, what if it doesn't have that kind of an ending? What if your relationship ended in divorce? It could be based on how much emotional investment you have in it, that you're relieved. You're not devastated, but you're relieved. But lots of people are devastated with a divorce because it was something that, it was a relationship that perhaps was really good for a while, and then it turned sour. It could be that if they divorced you, then you were rejected while somebody else was retained, essentially, which is the same thing that happens in the workplace. If you were laid off, or even worse, if you were fired, then it was a rejection of you. They could have kept you, but they chose not to for whatever reason. It could be, your whole department was terminated, and it had nothing to do with you personally, but it hurts. And I believe that the amount of personal devastation and sadness that you feel is directly proportional to how much you cared, how much emotional attachment you had to that person, to that marriage, or to that job. And if some people feel that when they get laid off, it is a personal attack, it is a personal rejection, it is a betrayal, and they say, I've learned from that lesson. You can't trust a company. I'm never going to go through that again. And so, in fact, I think I have a slide for that. Yeah. So when you have this loss, in fact, we used to, in my classes, we used to spend a bit of time talking about the emotional reaction or devastation that you feel to a job loss. We don't do that now that we're virtual, or now that when it's just job club. We don't usually talk about this emotional, the despair that you feel when you lose a job. It's right up there on the emotional devastation chart, up there with divorce, and often even with death of a family member. And job loss can be right up there. And some people say, are you kidding me? It's just a job. It's not a person. It depends on how much emotional attachment you had. If you lose a family member, but you've been estranged for a long time, there's not much emotional attachment there, then you don't feel the loss as much. If you've been in a job for 25 years and your job was a huge part of your life, and you lose the job, then yeah, it hurts. And if it was a job loss where you were fired or terminated, very often you lose trust in a company. You say, I'm never going to be dedicated and loyal to a company because it is not reciprocated. And so this feeling of betrayal by a person or betrayal by a company can both be very, very painful to get over. And I remember talking to a man who had been laid off, not fired, laid off from IBM after many years. And he said, I'll tell you one thing, I am never going to buy into a company line of bull again. From now on, a job is nothing but a paycheck. If I work a minute of overtime, I'm charging them for it, because that's all they care about is money. And so he was very bitter about the situation. And I've also, talked to people who've gone through a divorce. And as a person myself who's gone through both a job loss and a divorce, I can say that, and I've known lots of people, of course, who've come out of a divorce not with a feeling of relief and freedom, but with bitterness. And they'll say, I'm through with men, or I'm through with women. From now on, I'm never going to go get married again. I've learned that lesson. From now on, it's just sex and companionship. That's all I'm gonna be in for, because I'm just not successful at that kind of a relationship. So, boy, you talk about the relationship in both of these categories, and the loss can be devastating. The loss can also be freeing and enabling, because you get to move on to something else. But I believe that whether you view it favorably or you view it negatively is completely wrapped up with how much of yourself did you give to that relationship? How much did you contribute? And if you gave everything you had and it wasn't appreciated or it wasn't enough, then the pain is greater. Okay, it moved on. All right. So you can use the lessons learned from marriage and apply them to the job search. So, for example, when somebody tells me, how do I handle this in an interview if I was fired from my last job? Not laid off, I was fired. And my first question is, how long were you there? Because it seems to me that people that have been fired fall into one of two camps. And one camp is they were in a job for a very long time. And I can almost quote the script. They were in this job. They loved the job. They were good at the job. They were promoted frequently. They got wonderful evaluations. Everything was great. This was the job they were going to stick with probably for the rest of their career, because it was such a happy place for them. And then new management came in and everything changed. Things were reorganized. All of a sudden, they didn't like the work you were doing. Your performance evaluation started to be more negative. You were put on a performance improvement plan, and eventually you were essentially let go. And that in a situation like that, when somebody says, have you ever been fired? Or why did you leave your last job? And all this emotional stuff of having been rejected and gone through all of that comes across. No, you need to, number one, think about jelly donuts. I personally just like to think about jelly donuts. But the jelly donut technique is this, that you say something good when you're asked about anything negative. You start with something good. You put your negative information in the middle, like jelly in a donut, and you're very skimpy with the filling. And then you surround it again with something good. So for example, they say, why did you leave your last job? Well, I started that job 15 years ago, and I loved it. I loved every bit of it. I was frequently promoted. I was given some very challenging projects that were fun to do, and taught me a great deal about this industry. And so everything was great. We got a new manager in, and who made some changes. And I think really what they wanted to do when the management team came on board was to bring a lot of their own people on board instead. And so they had some reorganization, and unfortunately I was not part of the reorg. But boy, it was a great ride. And I completely understand it was a business decision, and I take all the knowledge and experience that I gained on that job, and I'm looking for a new place to hang my hat, and I hope it's going to be here with you. So you stay very positive. You don't go into any negative details. We don't need to know about the bad performance appraisals. We don't need to know about the PIP. We don't need to know about any of the details. We need to have a great positive attitude about everything you were able to learn at that company, and that it was a business decision, had nothing to do with you personally, and you're taking everything you learned and you're moving on in a positive way. And likewise, if somebody asks you about a previous spouse, you have two choices, right? You can talk about all the bad things that happened, and we know there's dirt there. Or you can take the high road, and you can say, we were together a very long time, and for most of those years, it was just terrific. But we sort of fell apart, and I mean, not fell apart. We sort of moved apart in the things that became important to us, and so I have no hard feelings, and we are able to. It was an amicable divorce, and I hope we'll remain friends forever. So the fact that somebody will not talk about dirt immediately elevates them in your mind, and you think, wow, that is a very enlightened attitude, because I know there's stuff going on there that they could go on about. So in both situations, you want to talk about the good things. You want to minimize saying anything that was negative, and you want to close it on the other end with something very positive. I hope we're going to stay friends for a long time. I've got all this great skill that I've got there that I'm hoping to be able to apply in my next job. So think about it a little bit. If you start talking negatively in an interview, it is pretty much a death wish, because nobody wants to hire somebody who's negative, who's vengeful, who's vindictive, who's got an edge to their voice when they talk about how they've been treated. None of that works for you. None of it. So be positive, put on a happy face, practice, talk to people about how you're coming across, but you can learn from that. And then the other situation is when it was a really short-term job. So you were let go. How long were you there? I was there for 3 months, 5 months, whatever. If you're talking about the job, you say, I was very excited when I took that job. I thought it was going to be, I thought it was exactly what I had been looking for at the time, but I could see practically day one that it was not what I had been led to believe at all. So I gave it my best shot, tried as hard as I could. Everything I took on, I made sure I got it done by deadline and within budget. But anyway, by the time it ended, it was sort of a mutual decision that job was not a really good fit for me. So that marriage was annulled, in other words. And that's what happens. I got married. It was a huge mistake from the get-go, and I got out of it as soon as I could. So a minimum of harm took place. So that marriage was annulled. You just don't want to ever go into negative details, ever. Wasn't a good fit. I could tell from day one. Okay. If they talk about gaps in your work history or in the marriage situation, if you get asked about why are you still single or whatever, you want to make sure that, or why have you been unemployed such a long time? Wow, you haven't worked in 6 months? Wow, why is nobody hiring you? That's the kind of question that can just send you over the edge. But you need to make sure that the message you get across is that I'm in charge. It was my decision. So let's say that you say, well, the longest gap in my work history happened when I got laid off in 2009. Of course, that was the nadir of the recession. And so at that time, I did something that I have tried to do every time I'm faced with unemployment. I take a break, I take some time off, and I assess my career. Where am I heading? What is it that I want to do? Do I want to go off into a different area? Is my industry still strong? Do I want to go into a different area of concentration in this industry? I assess. I go off somewhere. Usually I go camping or something, and I took some time off to just kind of think about my career and what I wanted to do. And then I did a lot of research as to what the future looked like for my career decision, and made sure it was one that was going to be viable for me. And during that time, I also decided to level up and improve my skills. So I took quite a few courses on Coursera and Udemy. And so I got certified in these 3 software programs. And I did this and this and this. I volunteered in some areas. I wanted to give back, and so I did these other things. Was engaged in some major home improvements. So I learned a lot about carpentry and so forth. So it's been a very productive time in my life, actually. And I'm fortunate that I don't have to take the first offer that comes along, whether that is true or not. I mean, it could be that you don't have any utilities on, but you don't want to make it seem as though you are impoverished or desperate. So I was fortunate that I didn't have to take the very first job that came along. I could be selective and make sure that it was the right company for me. And every time I have been laid off, I have done that. Assess, improve my skills, and be selective. And I hope to be able to continue that each time. And why are you single? Because I'm not interested in getting married at this time, or I haven't found the right person, and I'm not looking all that hard anyway because I'm having a great time by myself. Whatever. Be in charge. Don't cave in. Definition of tribes. About the fifth definition down is a class or set of persons, especially one with strong common traits or interests. Lately, tribalism has gotten a lot of bad press. Tribalism means essentially you're circling your wagons around people like you, and you don't care about other people, and you're self-centered. You're not collaborative. You're not interested in raising everybody's boat. You're only interested in your own people, your own class. But that's the kind of tribalism that I'm going to be talking about is not that. It's in fact having a plethora of tribes, a plethora of sets of persons with whom you share common traits or interests. And to realize that you have many, many examples of tribes. Your family, of course, your immediate family and extended family is the major tribe that we all think about. Your coworkers writ large, all your coworkers from the time you started work, that could be a tribe, or you could have your coworkers from each company that you worked for are a tribe. Your teammates on various teams, your bowling team, your softball team, all your teammates, that is a separate tribe of people. People that you've been in classes with are your tribes. Alumni, people who went to your school, especially if your school was sort of a smaller institution, or an institution that's not from Austin, Texas. But alumni, your parents of kids' friends, of your kids' friends are another tribe. You share that common interest of those kids playing soccer together. Homeschoolers have their own unique tribe. I had one of my grandchildren was homeschooled, and boy, that homeschool world is a tight-knit bunch of folks who are very collaborative. Volunteers. If you volunteer someplace, everybody who volunteers with you, you're a member of a unit, a tribe. Your running buddies. Okay, I could go on, but we're running out of time. Carpool. Who carpools with you? They're all your tribe. Meetup groups. I hope all of you have joined a bunch of meetups or groups of people that share your interests. Some meetups are career related. There's Java user group is a meetup, and there's the PMI is not a meetup. It's a professional association, but it's also a big tribe of people for project managers. But meetups, quilters and mystery writers, and there's so many meetups. Geeks and Austin Geeks and Gamers is a meetup. Toastmaster groups. Toastmaster people is a wonderful tribe of people because you're sharing a common interest in getting better at public speaking, and often for a particular goal. I just saw that Capital Factory has a Toastmaster group for entrepreneurs to be able to better pitch their companies, their products, their ideas. And so it's all, how do I do this more effectively? and they're sharing their Toastmaster experience to help each other get better. Professional associations, job clubs, networking groups, political organizations, your neighbors, what a wonderful tribe that is. Facebook, the people that you actually know that you're friends with on Facebook, your social media connections, competitors, that is people who work for companies that competed with you before. It doesn't necessarily mean competitors like you're a competitive runner or whatever. Those would be running buddies, but also people that worked in companies in your industry. So you worked for IBM and you meet people that work for Dell in your same job. So your industry, you have an industry tribe. And the same with vendors that you know through, they were vendors from when you worked. And your customers can also be helpful. Your various clubs, pet owners, all you dog people. You meet people at the dog parks. You meet people as you're all walking your canines. And you are part of a tribe of dog owners. And so anyway, you share that interest. Addiction groups, anybody who's in NA or AA or any of the A's, there's lots of them. Obviously, your religious organization, whatever that might be. Your ethnic group. Now, not so much white people, I don't think, but certainly blacks have a bond because of their shared history. And these days, as everybody is aware, their shared persecution, their shared discrimination, and Latinos as well. They share certain things, but if you have, you come here from another country, very often, like we have lots of people from South Asia who have groups where they share food. You know, they have their ethnic food and they have their ethnic holidays and religious observances and all of that sort of stuff. So whatever your group is, then you share this bond of ethnicity that you're a tribe, but you're a small enough tribe that you can network with each other. That's what this is all getting to. Somebody that shares your hobby. You're a sailor. You're a skateboarder. You're a cyclist. You're a motorcyclist. You're whatever. People that are into you're into this diet or that diet or whatever. You tend to have groups of people that all share that obsession. Obviously geeks, and there's tons and tons of geeky people in this town. And if you are a geek of a particular brand, what was it I looked up? I looked up some event that's going on at Capital Factory, and I thought, oh, that sounds interesting. I looked it up, and it said this group is for people that are engaged in any of these software, and I did not recognize any of them. They're very specific, and I can't even remember what it is. It's not like security software or collaborative software, but it's a new niche of software. And so they want to only be talking to people that are of their species. There's this is survivors of whatever, survivors of COVID. You are now, you had it, and especially if you were hospitalized, you're part of a new tribe. We have cancer survivors, we have breast cancer survivors, we have different diseases, and those survivors, they have a bond that connects them in a very primal way, that they beat death, and so that's a really strong tribal bond. And we have a new tribe, 2020 graduates. I went to a virtual graduation for my granddaughter from high school, and I told her, you are now part of a new tribe. All the high school and college graduates of 2020, when you say, I graduated in 2020, everybody's going to say, oh, yeah, I get it. Right. Everybody knows what that means. It tells us what you were forced to do. It tells us what you sacrificed. It tells us what you were not able to experience. It tells us how resilient you were, how creative you were. You're a tribe unto yourselves, and nobody can take that away from you. In other words, and here was supposed to be a word cloud, but I never could get it to be the color I wanted, so you can hardly see it. But it's all of those different tribes put in a word cloud. So in conclusion, oh, and I'm going to tell you, wait, I'm going to go back. Be mindful of your tribes. Write them all down. How many different tribes you are part of. This was the whole tribal connection was something that came to us in a speech that Mike Trujillo made last year sometime, I guess. And I thought, wow, tribes, I never thought of that before. And right after he made his talk, we had two people who got jobs through their tribal connections. And one was somebody that many of you know, Mary McKelvey, and she was at a soccer game with her kids playing. She'd been a soccer mom for years, and there were all the moms and dads, hang together. And she said she had never carried on a conversation with any of those people about anything other than kids. And this time she asked this person that she'd been speaking to for a long time. She said, well, do you work? What do you do for a living? And the person told her, and then the person came back at her and said, what do you do? Do you work? And she said, well, I'm looking. She said, I'm a project manager, but I got laid off from, I can't remember, Concordia, maybe. She said, I got laid off from my job. And so now I've been looking at GM and at the state. And in fact, I have an interview tomorrow with the state. And she said, oh, which agency? She said, TCEQ. And she said, well, my gosh, my husband works for TCEQ. He's a project manager. You need to talk to him tonight. You need to come over. And so she called him up. She spent 2 hours with him talking about what it's like to be a project manager at TCEQ. And when she went in for her interview the next day, she laid it out to them about, here's how this works. Here's how my background perfectly qualifies me for this job. Here's how I will seamlessly be able to fit in to this organization and to this culture. She said it was jaw-dropping how impressed they were with her performance, and she got hired. She had never thought to tap into that tribe. And the other was one of our people who wanted to work for HomeAway. She found a job opening there, and she looked on LinkedIn to see if she knew anybody there, and she did not. And so then she looked in. She graduated from somewhere like Penn State, and she went into LinkedIn and she did a search for anybody from HomeAway who had graduated from her school. There was one woman. She reached out to her and she said, hey, Penn State graduate, I'm one too, and I'm interested in a job at HomeAway. Could I treat you to a cup of coffee and find out a little bit more about the company and what you like about it? And so she ended up getting an interview through that connection. So she tapped into her alumni tribe. Now, it doesn't work so much with UT because we're all, there's too many of us. However, everybody knows about the 12th man at A&M. And even though that is also a big school with lots of graduates here, they have a very vibrant, will help you connect with somebody kind of program, the 12th man program. So anyway, examples. In conclusion, expand your options. Expand the options of the jobs that you're looking for. Reinvent yourself. Expand your options in terms of the tribes with whom you identify. Keep an open mind. Have fun. It's really all about, the job search has got to be more fun than work. With the new people that you're meeting and with the new experiences that you're having and the new technology that you're being forced to learn, have fun. And remember that, oh, I'm sorry, that's not the job part. That's the marriage part. Still, expand your options. Don't look for just the same kind of person. Be open to everything. Join more tribes, meet more people, keep an open mind, Uh, if the prince had only looked for princesses in the normal places, he would never have found Cinderella. Have fun, and remember that the right person is out there for everyone. In fact, many right people are out there for everyone. And on the other side, same thing. Expand your options, identify, join more tribes, keep an open mind, have fun, and the right job is out there for everyone, and there are many right jobs. Enough said. Mic drop. Okay. I'm done. I'm done early. Oh my gosh, that has never happened in the history of me. So we could have a mini discussion if you would like. You could raise your hand and say something, be recognized by Paul.
Or you can just unmute yourself and I'll catch you.
Or you can unmute yourself. I guess I don't need glasses. Nobody wants to talk, really?
There's one.
Really?
Rachel?
Okay, Rachel.
So I guess I'm thinking about this in the aspect of the direction of the type of job I would look for, because I mean, I talked about my interior design and sales background, and then I tried something totally new and learned a lot of new great things. And now I'm just kind of debating on, do I stay with trying to look for a job that would be phone sales or something to do with social media, or do I go back to what I had done before? I just don't know exactly how to tackle my LinkedIn and everything else right now.
Yeah, it is overwhelming when you very first lose a job, all the different things you have to do. And you can't really do LinkedIn until you decide what job are you looking for. You can't do a resume until you decide what kind of job am I looking for. You can't do business cards, an elevator pitch, none of it. So the exploration, I think, has to be the first thing that you do. And when you explore which one of those, so maybe you make a spreadsheet of each one. You have 3 different careers, right, that you're thinking about: interior design and social media.
So I've always done sales, interior design. I have a degree in, and then I got into social media doing sales.
Okay, and so you may I think it's a good idea to do a spreadsheet, and some of the things that you're going to want to do, some of the things that you're going to want to do are look on Indeed and see how many job openings there are in those various areas. Are there even, is there market? And then you should also perhaps connect on LinkedIn with some people within those various career fields and try to have an informational interview with them about what does the future look like in your company for hiring people, because everything seems to be kind of in decline right now. So how in the world are we going to deal with that? And then the other one is, what did I just think of? Oh, get information. How many openings are there? And somebody that's in that career field to what that looks like. Are you going to have to learn new technology? Are you going to have to gain new skills in order to go back into it? If it's been a long time since you've done interior design, are you going to have to try to volunteer and do to get a portfolio? Is that what you're going to have to move forward on that? It could be. I keep thinking that we should have more contact tracer job openings. I knew one company that was funneling through. They got 600 contact tracers to work remotely, because that's kind of like telephone sales. If you could be a contact tracer, and they were paying some pretty decent money for that. And I think that Texas is going to have to hire more people. They're all remote jobs, so anybody can do them. They look for people with empathy and experience gathering information and giving out information. So it's a pretty easy referral. But at any rate, I can't seem to find where those openings are right now. So is there a market for what you can do? And then do you need to get additional training in order to make yourself marketable? So what do you need? And then before too long, you've got to choose one of those.
Yeah.